Hi, everyone. My name is Allie Talcott, and I'm the Executive Director of the Build America School Infrastructure Coalition, known as BASIC. Thank you so much for being here with us today for our webinar on how districts are making use of the clean energy tax credits for school improvement projects. Please go ahead and drop your name and org in the chat so we know who you are. And a few housekeeping items while you all do that. I already saw some in the chat. We are recording this presentation and we'll make the recording and slides available for you afterwards. And there will be opportunities for questions at the end. So please put them in the chat as you think of them and we will collect them as we go. Next slide, please. BASIC is a diverse national coalition united in advocacy for a robust and reliable federal role in modernizing the nation's public school buildings and grounds. A little bit about us. BASIC is made up of public and private organizations and companies representing a wide range of constituencies across the country. Our vision is that all communities have inspiring, safe, healthy, sustainable, and modern public school buildings and grounds. And over the last few years, BASIC has advocated for federal policies that have helped secure hundreds of millions of dollars down to the states and local districts from the federal government. We are incredibly grateful to all of our coalition members who have advocated alongside us for the last several years, and we look forward to protecting what we have in current law as the federal policy landscape continues to shift around us. Next slide, please. Before reviewing our agenda for the session, I wanted to offer BASIC's sincerest gratitude and thanks to our generous sponsors, CMTA and Veregy, for making today possible. We thank you for today's partnership and are excited to hear from you today. Next slide, please. Awesome. We will be kicking things off with a primer on the energy tax credits and performance contracting led by Sarah from Undaunted K-12, and two case studies led by Veregy and CMTA showcasing examples of projects at the district level, and an overview of the advocacy opportunities led by Anissa, BASIC's board chair and Center for Green Schools at USGBC. And with that, I will now turn it to Sarah, BASIC's board member, to kick us all off.
Great. Thank you so much, Allie, and thank you for being with us here today, everyone. So in the next 7 minutes, we're going to give an overview of school districts, our buildings, energy tax credits, and performance contracting. So hold on. First, I think many of us know that our school facilities are not up to the job. We're not spending the amount we need even to maintain current levels. Our engineers just gave our school buildings a D+ grade, and our school buildings are facing new challenges. Things like extreme heat means that we need to invest billions more dollars to bring cooling into our classrooms. What do we need to know about energy tax credits? Well, energy tax credits are one of the ways in which we're finding some of these new dollars to make these vital improvements. These are non-competitive dollars, a federal reimbursement, uncapped, that you can earn for certain facilities improvements. The federal government will cover a significant portion of the cost, 30 to 50% typically. And because it's based on project cost, here, inflation hedge. These tax credits are available at their current levels for projects that start before January 1st, 2033. So according to current law, we have a time horizon over which to do this work. And I want to mention that these tax credits are not subject to the new administration's executive orders. These are mandatory government spending. You're seeing a picture of a school district leader in Wisconsin that got a check already for this work. So these are not grants. I want to hit that point home. If you do eligible work, you get the tax credit. You don't apply for this, you file for this. So how could your school benefit? Well, schools are using these energy tax credits to replace HVAC equipment, for example, that's at the end of its life. They're using these investments to reduce operating costs, save money, bring more dollars into the classroom. They're doing things like installing energy storage to improve the resilience of our facilities, bring cooling where we don't have it and desperately need it, reduce the cost of a new school building. Maybe your community is investing, it's a big investment for taxpayers, and you can reduce the cost of that new building through energy tax credits. And through all this work, we have opportunities to improve indoor air quality. So Doug Anderson out at the Davis School District, a growing district in Utah, they are actively using these energy tax credits to install technologies like ground source heat pumps and solar, and that's radically reducing the operating costs for their building. So instead of spending $60,000 to $80,000 every year, their new buildings with these technologies are now costing them $20,000 a year to operate. Great savings for that district. Energy tax credits are working in our schools. So at Undaunted K-12, where I'm a co-founder, we're tracking over 500 projects that schools are doing across the country. And schools are already starting to get checks for doing this work. So North Fayette Valley in Iowa got almost $1 million check for a ground source heat pump system they put in an existing building to address safety issues. Salt Lake City got over $1 million for 5 solar energy systems they installed across different buildings in the district. And Seattle Public Schools got a check for almost $8 million in their first filing for 3 geothermal systems they installed in some of their new construction. All right, now turning to our third primer. So energy performance contracting. What is this tool? If you're new to it, it's a way where we can use avoided costs to pay for needed facilities improvements. Let's say your district spends $1 million a year on utility costs. Let's say you can come up with some improvements to those buildings that would save $300,000 of those utility costs. That now becomes a budget to actually make those improvements a reality. You can learn more about energy performance contracting using this piece from the Department of Energy. Oh boy. So this is allowing districts to make improvements today based on savings that will accrue into the future. We do this work with energy services companies. We have 2 of them on the line today, Veregy and CMTA. They bring a wealth of expertise in energy, in building science, in financing, and in project management, really helping schools execute on this opportunity. It's important to note that this contracting methodology is enabled by state legislation, and every state is different. So important to understand your context in your state. But generally speaking, that enabling legislation in different states requires the basket of improvements to pay off in a certain amount of time, a certain number of years. This model drives a heavy focus on energy. And so it's important as we do this work that we make sure that health stays and keeps pace and is with us as we do all this important work to improve our school facilities. So why do these 2 tools, energy tax credits and performance contracting, why do these 2 ways of getting dollars into our facilities work so well together? Well, these energy tax credits are helping us invest in highly efficient technologies that save energy costs. So right away, we should be thinking about how there's a magnetism between this contracting tool that thrives off of energy savings. So already we kind of see the connective tissue there. But performance contracting can struggle to pay to cover the cost of long payback items, specifically items like HVAC systems, which may not pay off in a short period of time, like some other items. So here's where energy tax credits as additional cash can really help us stretch this tool of performance contracting farther and help us unlock some of these long payback items like HVAC systems. So they're really working well together. And, lastly, energy tax credits, they're an opportunity now, but many school districts don't necessarily have the capacity to tackle a lot of new facilities projects. And that's where working with energy services companies can really help projects happen today in our schools. And we're seeing this as we're tracking projects across the country that are using energy tax credits. We're seeing how often these schools have been working with performance contracting, that model, to really help them execute and get projects done. I don't want to hide the ball. If any of you are watching the news, you know that these energy tax credits are a topic of current discussion. Congressional Republicans are looking to extend Trump's 2017 tax cuts. They need a way to pay for those extension of tax cuts, and repealing these clean energy tax credits for our schools and for other buildings may be one of the ways they pay for it. I do want to let you all know, if you're trying to do this work right now, that any changes to tax law, so if they do pass a law this year, which they will try hard to do, it is likely to have an effective date in the future. The most likely thinking is January 1st, 2026, which means that you can get started on projects this year, and that might help you have those grandfathered in. So that is a way to de-risk your project. But stay tuned, because at the end of the session, we're actually going to talk about how school districts can help school leaders, can help their congressional leaders see the power of this tool and help kind of shape your own destiny here. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to turn it over now to Sage Acorn from Veregy, who has a history in doing this work. Thank you so much for being here, Sage. And he's going to talk about Springfield Public Schools and the great work that Veregy has helped them do.
Well, first of all, thank you for the kind introduction, and we're very happy to be here. Great to be sponsors, and excited to talk to you guys a little bit about energy tax credits and how we've seen them really complement what we do and help schools accomplish what they so desperately need to. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Just a quick agenda, 3 real quick things: introduction, who we are, and then what we're all here for, and that's to hear about the project and how it was accomplished. So go ahead and the next one. That's me. I've been doing this for about a little over 20 years. I've been with ESCOs and performance contracting for most of my career. And so I know a little bit about it. So I'm excited to share some of the passions that are mine with you and show how we can get things done for schools and keep this viable for everybody. So we're going to spend a few minutes, hopefully 3 or less, on who we are, and then we'll jump right into the project. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So Veregy is an energy services contractor. We've been in business for 34 years plus. We operate in about 17 states, coast to coast. We've done well over 500 projects in the K-12 space, been in thousands of buildings, and I think to date, about $2 billion in energy savings projects. So we're pretty versed in how to get this done and what to do. Go ahead and next slide. Just a brief list of what we do. We do preliminary assessments at no cost for districts, long-range facilities and maintenance planning, turnkey projects. That means everything from development to implementation all the way through warranty is with one person, one contract. We help optimize financial performance. We can help you figure out how to best finance the project or get it accomplished. We can maximize local contractor participation. We have a whole division dedicated to helping find grants. We do a design, it's very similar to a design build projects. We do infrastructure renewal, energy efficient solutions, and digital services. So if you want to learn more about any of that, you can reach out to me later. She did a great job explaining what performance contracting is, so I'll hit this real quick. There's no upfront cost for the preliminary design and budgets. We provide that at no cost. Guaranteed contract pricing, no change orders. You have one contract for design, development, implementation. It's a turnkey solution, no hidden fees. Guaranteed energy savings. So if we tell you you're going to save X amount, you don't. We have to write you a check for the difference. That risk falls on us. And the project can be developed on life cycle costing, not just lowest upfront cost. We help with marketing at no cost. We're vendor neutral, so you're not tied to any one vendor. And we have the ability to use your preferred contractors and vendors if you're trying to standardize. So that's just kind of brief overview. Let's get into the project, why we're all really here to talk about this. So Springfield School Districts is a longtime partner that we've known for a while, and it's a larger district. It's actually the largest school district in Missouri, and they had passed a bond several years ago to address some of their infrastructure needs. And as you all know, with inflation and rising costs, their dollars fell short in some of the things they'd wanted to accomplish. One of those things was they had several schools with outdated HVAC systems. This equated to almost 206,000 square feet of building. No standardization. These are older buildings, had multiple add-ons, so multiple different types of systems. They were having comfort issues, as all the educators on here know, can affect children's test scores, their ability to pay attention. And then for the maintenance and facilities people, there was just unpredictable costs and outages that they couldn't control with these systems getting near the end of their useful life or past their useful life. And so they really needed to address these in these 3 schools. But they had budget constraints. They had a set bucket that they were trying to keep their budget within. It was about $9 million is what they had to spend. And they had already put this out to bid once on their own using a more traditional method, and the cost just came back way higher than they than would have allowed them to do the project. And so they were looking to get creative, which is when they turned to a company like ours and asked, how can you help? And so we came to them with some creative solutions, looking at both energy tax credits, which could help fund the project, as well as performance contracting, which would allow a lot of flexibility and different ways to look at building out this project in a way that was the most productive and efficient for the district, both in energy costs, but also in the actual out-of-pocket costs. And then lastly, they were really intrigued by the idea of a guaranteed maximum price, knowing with their fixed budget that when they signed a contract, they didn't have to worry about scope growth and cost growth and unforeseen costs that would inflate the project. And the energy tax credits, not to jump too far ahead of myself though, help bring that project within budget. And we're going to get in a little bit how that looked and how that worked. So if you want to go ahead and skip over to that, we'll go there. So a big, touched on this briefly, but a big part of this was the funding details for them. They had cash in hand, so they weren't necessarily going to do a lease purchase or any other kind of loans or anything like that to accomplish this. They wanted to accomplish it within budget. And so we helped them determine that if they used a geothermal system, HVAC system as the basis of design, they could count on somewhere between $4.5 to $5 million in energy tax credits alone, which just with the tax credits would help bring their project within budget. And so this was a critical point for the school district and for the school board and for the community, that without these tax credits, this work just simply could not have been done in the time frame that it was done, and would have had to have been put off for quite a while, would have been untenable considering the comfort issues and the cost issues they were running into. So just give a little bit of the scope of what was accomplished and what was done, how it was accomplished. They had 3 schools, one larger 2-story school and then 2 smaller schools. Like I said earlier, about 206,000 square feet worth of building. And the scope was basically they needed someone to help design, engineer, and implement the new system to replace the existing systems. And they wanted one firm to help them do that, to keep prices down and to also help streamline the system, because they had already put this off for a while because they had put it out to bid and come back high, and so it had already been delayed. And they needed this all done over one summer. And this is a pretty big task to accomplish. There was 170 wells that had to be drilled, 164 water source heat pumps to install, 10 energy recovery units, 8 rooftop units, 5 VRF systems, 2 mini splits. And because this was a new system, all of the ceilings in these schools, roughly 40,000 square feet of acoustical ceiling, had to be dropped, all this piping put in, and then new ceilings put up, all in a summer. So if you want to kind of get an idea of how this process looks, the timeframes that it takes to get it accomplished, the school district put together an RFP to acquire services from ESCO companies, performance contractors, in July of 2023. And again, that was they wanted an RFP, request for proposal, for design, development, and implementation with a firm price. They selected contractors in December. Thankfully, we were the partner that was selected. And all of that work had been done prior to this. So when they selected us, we were ready to go. We were able to, another reason we signed the contract, by the way, in December, even though the work wasn't being done till summer, is, if all of you remember, especially during this time, long lead times were an issue. So we got this under contract and ordered equipment so that it would be on site before school let out. And then in February, we mobilized and we started drilling wells. So these are obviously not near playgrounds or anything in the safe areas. We were able to identify areas where we could start work while school's in session. So we got a head start there. And then literally the day school released in each one of these buildings, we started dropping ceilings, securing perimeters, getting the work started. And we worked really closely with the school to not have to interfere if there was summer schools going on or if there was things going on in the gyms. We worked around all of that. And then kept our word, and by the end of the summer, we were able to turn all 3 schools back over to the district with no change orders. Happy school, happy kids, comfortable environment for them to learn in, and right on budget. As far as the energy tax credits, we started immediately compiling the information that they would need. We helped them identify a tax consultant to work with. Most public schools, being public entities, don't file taxes typically, so they needed someone that they could partner with. They ended up settling on Energy Tax Services, who help them navigate these waters in conjunction with us providing documentation. So we just submitted our IRS pre-filing. They did just recently in April. They will do their official filing in May, June, sometime this year. And by August, we're estimating that they will receive their rebate. Another school, very similar school, not too far away, Branson, Missouri, we did this work with earlier in the year. We had estimated they'd receive about $850,000 in a rebate, and that is the actual check you can see in the bottom right-hand corner there that they received for almost $1.5 million cash in hand that they were able to deposit directly into their checking account and do with what they want, pay down the project. It was a great deal for them, so we're excited for Springfield to do the same thing. I'll go to the next slide. So again, we covered a little bit of this, but just to reiterate, the school district did have these funds in reserves, but because of that, they were very limited in what they could spend, and the energy tax credits made up the vast majority of the savings. There were some energy savings, about $350,000, $375,000, which are guaranteed, but it was really the energy tax credits that made this possible. The neat thing about the tax credits and as far as policy is concerned, it really pushes schools in a good way, I think, towards really energy efficient systems, which are better long-term maintenance wise. They're better overall for the long-term viability of their utility costs. And so it pushes them towards something like geothermal or solar, which usually the only reason schools might avoid that possibly upfront is that upfront cost is usually too high. And so the energy tax credits bring those within reach of school districts to allow them to create the most energy efficient and modern HVAC systems that they could put in their schools. And so it's pretty amazing, great opportunity for schools to be able to pull on. If you're not really familiar with these energy tax credits, there are even kickers. So the base tax credit on this particular one they were pursuing was 30% of the project could be paid for with an energy tax credit. And then if you're in an energy community, which we believe one of these schools will be, there's an additional 10% can be added to that. And then if you're aiming for domestic content, so as much of the product that you can buy here in the United States, there's an additional 10%. The IRS, we're still waiting on a determination on some of these that we've applied for on how much and what that looks like, but that's just additional on top of what you applied for that they could receive. So a lot of great provisions, opportunities to receive additional funds for your projects. Again, because of the performance contract, they have a guaranteed energy savings of almost $400,000, again, that they can apply to this. And then there's the other operating costs and maintenance costs that will be eliminated, these avoided costs that they've been spending on compressors that are going out, or outages that they were unanticipated, having to bring in contractors on the weekend to work on things to get them fixed. These are all things that are eliminated by going with a brand new almost maintenance-free new system like this. So just high-level summary, if it was not for these tax credits and performance contracting, schools like Springfield and Branson and many others that we've worked with would just not be able to accomplish this kind of work. And so we are advocating for these things. We're calling for schools to advocate for these as well. We think this is a great thing for our kids, for our taxpayers, for districts, and just anything that we can do to help bring attention to this is great. If any of you have questions for me later, and talk here or give me a ring at some other point. But I think that's about all we had there. So thank you, Sarah, for the time, and appreciate you allowing us to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sage. That was great. I love hearing about the work happening in Missouri. So thanks for sharing it all with this crew. We're going to turn now over to Kentucky and hear from Jason Volz. He's with CMTA, a group that leads in MEP engineering and performance contracting. And he has with him the CFO, COO, treasurer, and construction supervisor from Warren County Public Schools, Chris McIntyre. So Jason Volz and Chris, thank you so much for being here with us today. Jason, I'll turn it over to you to get us started.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Similarly, just a little introduction about who CMTA is. First off, we're a consulting engineering firm. So we help turn the lights on and keep the lights on in your facilities. And we've got offices all over the country, from Boston to California. We specialize in high-performing K-12 school design. That's our expertise. We helped write the book on it. We developed the first net zero school with the help of Chris here in his district. That's the first net zero school across the entire country. But as Sarah said, my name is Jason Volz. I work specifically in our performance contracting division. So we touch a lot of existing buildings specifically, but my role is to find ways for clients to fund infrastructure projects specifically. And traditionally that's been done through grants and utility savings and energy savings, just like Sage was talking about with Veregy. Our firm performs those same types of projects, but most recently, since 2022, energy tax credits have been available to public entities for the first time, and that's what we're able to take advantage of. Next slide, please. Our expertise at CMTA focuses on high-performing facilities, just like I said, specifically when it comes to geothermal, renewable, and energy storage. Nobody knows more geothermal than CMTA across the country, and with that expertise, we've had to become experts in applications and going after these tax credits. We were already doing that for our private clients, but in 2022, that was opened up to public clients through direct pay. And you can see on our next slide, these are real applications that are going on across the country. We've got over $170 million in tax credits that we're going after with different clients. So a lot of those have already received checks. You can see one right there from Hart County, Kentucky, that's a little north of $791,000. But instead of focusing on that specific project, I think we wanted to touch on our work with Warren County and how that work translated from an energy project through new construction, because it doesn't only apply to renovations. So first, we have been doing design work, and I'll let Chris speak to this a little bit, for quite some time now, but we engaged with them on an energy project in the 2018-2019 timeline where they had a significant amount of deferred maintenance needs, similar to many school districts across the country. They were also spending a significant amount of money going to the utility company. And we were able to help redirect that money from their power company and bring it back into their facilities. So this is something that every school district is already paying for an energy savings performance contract. They're just sending that money to the utility company. Instead, they can be bringing that money back into their facilities. And they did that through their first energy project that focused on 6 new fully renovated HVAC systems. 5 of those were geothermal, 520 kW of solar. You can see that in the middle picture, as well as really going after LED lighting and indoor air quality across their district. So they have about 30 facilities in their district, and they were able to go after a significant portion of that with this first phase of an energy project. And that came with some significant results, and I'll let Chris really take it from there to talk about the results. Chris, thanks.
Thanks, Jason. Good afternoon, everyone. Like they said, I'm Chris McIntyre, long title. It just means I've been here a long time, right? And they give me a bunch of responsibilities. A little bit about Warren County Public Schools. We have the pleasure of serving close to 19,000 students. We grow about 450 students a year, so we always have something going on in construction. 102 languages spoken in the district from 90 different countries. So 33% of our kids are multilingual, 16% are special ed. So we cover about 556 square mile county. So a very large district, 2.5 million miles a year on school buses, 3.9 million meals served in a nutshell. So a little bit about our why did we go down this path? And we started this back in 2001 with first energy manager in the state of Kentucky. And we've approached it, I've been here 20 years, so we've approached it with, a little bite out of that elephant every chance we get the opportunity and learn from it. So at the end of the day, we're more about how can we redirect monies into our staff's pocket. So how do we compensation? That's with all of us, right? We struggle to attract and retain talent due to the workforce shortage that everybody in every industry suffers. So we've had a really intense focus on energy. That's a low-hanging fruit for us. And that prior to 2017, we're operating just a little over 40 EUI, energy usage intensity, which is basically kilobtu per square foot per year that you're building is consuming. Within our climate zone, 73 is the average. And within our area, it's about $3,500 per EUI. So if I look at my buildings, elementaries, new ones are about 92,000 square foot. So that's roughly $255,000 a year in energy cost. Well, as we've learned and layered the approach, we're now down to building buildings at 15.5 EUI. So I'm down to a little over $50,000 in energy cost a year. So I'm saving over $200,000 a year in energy costs I'm redirecting into my staff's compensation package. So, like I said, going back to 2017, when we had several buildings that were really energy deficient because of aging infrastructure and T12, T8 lighting, we went into a JESCO project. Just through that project, we touched every building in the district, 23,000 light bulbs, like Jason said earlier, 6 HVAC systems, a couple roofs, and some other things. We were able to layer, and that's what I really liked from the district's perspective. I was able to layer funding levels. I was able to go in and take roughly $16 million through energy savings for my bond repayment, and then another 15 million on top of that addressed other issues that were not necessarily energy savings, but matters that maintenance wise I need to address in the short term that otherwise would have been a drain on my general fund. So I was able to ladder monies in a bond sale and the repayment of those funds to maximize what we got out of it. So within that project, number of things we touched, we were able to drive our EUI from low 40s down to, with the exception of the pandemic year in 2020, right? We were all pretty energy efficient when we had nobody in our buildings. But we're consistently now at 24.4, 24.2 in that range, holding steady. So next slide, please. So if you look at what we've done, this is a high school. So this high school is roughly 210,000 square foot with a multi-purpose facility out back of it. We had a geothermal field in the baseball field. I took my monthly energy bill from running $27,000 a month down to $12,500 on average. So cut my energy bill in half to pay for an aging infrastructure that, let's face it, when parents come into your facilities, kids come into your facilities, they expect you to have air, right? They expect it to be, climate is supposed to be comfortable, and lighting is supposed to be great to enhance the learning environment. And let's face it, so does your staff. But they aren't the pretty, fancy, eye-appealing things that people like to spend money on that draw attention. So to be able to do this through energy savings, so I'm going to spend it on electric bill, I'm going to spend it on the infrastructure. So rediverting those funds to infrastructure made a lot of sense, and we were able to add geothermal, new windows, and some other things to Greenwood High School to help maximize that project. Go on to the next slide, please. So geothermal for us is about $15 extra a square foot net. So if you take your traditional boiler cooler and change that to geothermal, what's the additional investment? So for us, it's about $15 a square foot difference in cost. And that's our why. We have about 11-year payback on geothermal. Anything beyond about 15 years payback, such as solar for us, unless we get a federal grant or some other subsidy, really doesn't make a lot of sense. For me, it's a 20-year payback otherwise. So I look at stuff that 15 or less year payback, and whereby my maintenance team has an expertise in working on or ability to upscale their knowledge base to work on real easily and standardize it across the platform. So if you look in this predicted credit off our most recent energy savings project, which just happened to be our central office building. I apologize, just put that on mute. My central office building and the elementary school sitting next door to us, which is roughly 80,000 square foot. We did a new geothermal field and connected to the two buildings. So we're anticipating roughly $1.7 million in savings through tax credits on that. So I get the question often is, you would have done that where you had the tax credit or not? Potentially, it would be the answer. where that hits me on the other end is what other projects I have to do as well. So this $1.7 million frees up some other capital projects I can do, such as felling roofs, um, or aging out roofs, and other mechanical systems that need to be upgraded. We run, like Jason said earlier, 30+ buildings, and their age is 86 years old to 2 years old, 3 right now. So we have a wide portfolio of facilities, and aging facilities. So that continued investment is always needed. And I go back to a vibrant public school system that whereby you drive your community, right? To attract people to your community and really have a growth and a workforce and industry want to relocate to your facility. If you were moving to another town, where would you go first? You look at their school systems, right? And we're very blessed here in Warren that we have 2 really good school systems and a university. And both school systems take pride in their facilities. So if you drive by one of our facilities, you'll see a lot of intentionality in the landscaping, to the style of brick, to the design of the building, and that continues to the inside. Our thought process on that is if we can get kids really excited about wanting to be at school, the parents will want to come and visit the school too. If we get the parents tied in and the kids bought in, then we really have the recipe for success, because those parents and students are going to jail along along with the teaching staff, and there goes our test scores, there goes the learning environment. So going on to the next slide, you look at the investment cost versus the tax basis to get the credit, eligible for 42.5% credit, or 1.7 million. Energy savings is I would say that's a conservative number. What you will typically see in our guaranteed energy savings projects, we've done 2 now. The first one we did was supposed to save us right $900,000 a year. We're saving roughly 1.3 to 1.4 a year, depends on the year. And how are they doing it? We're basing that off of actual meter. So we're getting the meter readings. There's no engineering math that my board members don't understand. It's actual meter reads. So you can see the life cycle cost and the savings there, and the impact on the bottom line.
And I think at the end of the day, you were able to get 2 HVAC systems that cost about $4.8 million over the lifespan of that for $330,000. That's a deal I'd take every day. And that's helped by the IRA, the investment tax credit and everything to do with it. And I think that translated into the decisions that you made moving forward on your new buildings as well.
That is correct.
Yeah, next slide.
We have several new buildings going. Like I said, we're a growth district. Bottom right is Greenwood High School. We got a $50 million renovation expansion going on there. Top left is a new elementary school built for 850 students. It's a lodge theme. Each one of our buildings has a theme. I've done a Lego theme. It has a 140,000 piece Lego bulldog in it. This is a ski lodge theme that will have a big fireplace in it. Don't worry, there's no fire. It's actually water vapor with color changing RGB in there. But we're able to do this through the savings and the investments we're making in energy savings. And then top right is the newest building that we're embarking on. It's 180,000 square foot project-based learning facility for 7 through 12. It'll be the first Leader in Me model school in the world. Bottom left is the current construction of that facility. So all these have ICF, automated logic, LED lighting, geothermal is a huge part. Every one of my facilities, with the exception of one school, has geothermal in it. And it will have it as soon as we rebuild it in about 3 years. So we're always looking at these strategies of how best to spend the money. Yes, it's an upfront cost, and sometimes that's a larger pill to swallow than most, depending on your situation. But how you ladder your funding and funding streams and maximize that play a huge role in how we're able to pull these projects off.
Chris, thank you so much. This is great. It's clear you guys are just doing a ton of work, so I'm not surprised. Your phone is ringing here as you're trying to spend some time with us, and we appreciate it. And it's clear that you have a lot here at stake in terms of keeping these energy tax credits to allow you to, again, like you said, roll that dollar into the next project, into the next need, back into the classroom, back into salaries. I think you painted a really a picture that I think most folks on this call can probably identify with, situation in many of our schools. So thank you so much for sharing all that with us. We're going to switch now, as we talked about, these dollars are at risk. And so I'm going to hand it off to Anissa Hemming, who's the director of the Center for Green Schools at the U.S. Green Building Council, to talk about some of the advocacy work that's going on to preserve these dollars. This is in line with USGBC's mission and, of course, with BASIC's mission here today. So thank you so much, Anissa.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sarah. I also want to, so USGBC has, which is the U.S. Green Building Council, clearly has a lot, our community has a lot at stake with these energy tax credits across many sectors. Undaunted K-12, Sarah's organization has been a real leader in making sure that we really understand the situation with schools and school districts and how these tax credits are being used in schools and where and how to continue those. So the first thing to know when it comes to advocacy for these tax credits is that there's a huge community of advocates who are speaking up across many sectors and across many related tax credits. So there's sort of this landscape of tax credits related to the production of energy and the use of energy, and they're all connected. And it's a system that was sort of set up with the expansion of these tax credits through the IRA. So there's the current sort of political situation with this is that Congress is exploring how to pay for, as Sarah was saying, the extension of tax breaks that they want to pay for. And they are looking for ways to pay for it. And they're looking across these tax credits for ways to pay for it. So there's many options: scaling down, reducing the length of time for some of these tax credits. They're looking at a lot of different options for how to do this. We want to make sure that direct pay for school districts is maintained through this shuffling that's going on right now. And that's where the voice of school districts is really essential to make sure that that is going to be maintained within, again, these sort of negotiations across the board. Next slide. So I'm going to pass it back to Sarah quickly to talk about some of the resources that Undaunted has created and the work that they've been doing to raise up the voices of school districts. And then I'll come back with some actions that you can take.
Great. Yeah. We've had the benefit of working with school districts across the country, like Chris in Warren County, to really help them engage directly with their members of Congress. These tax credits are flowing into our communities in such a distributed fashion that many of these elected officials don't know about the ways in which they're impacting their own constituents. So Chris joined school leaders from Maine, from Minnesota, to come to DC and engage with members of Congress and just tell the story and really educate those congressional staffers around how these tax credits are improving school buildings, reducing cost to taxpayers, and really help them see the impact. So these are some case studies that we've helped school districts write and really just tell their own story. We have an action center online that you can see here the link to, and when you get these slides in the chat also, where you can see just, how we're kind of helping these districts tell their story. If you have a school district that you're a part of or you're a community member, and there's a story there to tell also, and it doesn't need to be that they've already got a check or already finished the project. It can be, we're planning to do a project. This law passed 2 years ago. We've gotten organized. We're ready to do it. And now you're going to pull the rug out from under us. Those are really compelling stories. The point here is just to really engage your members of Congress on both sides of the aisle so they understand what's at stake for you. And maybe you want me to keep going here, Anissa. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, this is just a picture of
this already, but here's
some of the school district we had on the Hill. Yeah. Thank you.
So, so there is, there are two sign-on letters that we're inviting you, or two sort of action opportunities that we're inviting you to take today, if this is something that you care about and you want to see this continue. So this first one is a sign-on letter from GeoExchange, specifically around the need for this kind of support for ground source geothermal heating and cooling. So if you are considering doing a geothermal project and you really need these tax credits to help, make that viable for your school system, then please consider signing on for your organization or school district onto this letter. And then the next one is a one-click outreach tool that USGBC has set up for the tax credits that were expanded through the Inflation Reduction Act. This is customizable, so it just helps you easily connect with your elected officials' offices. So you put your name and where you are, and then you can customize a letter that we sort of give you some prompts for, and then it automatically sends that to your elected officials. So it's another way to reach the elected officials that are trying to figure out what matters within these this tax credit landscape. And both of those are in the chat now. And I know we had a lot of great questions. We've taken them and sort of organized them and stuff. So looking forward to diving into some of the details with you all and our speakers through those questions. Sarah, did you want to get that kicked off? Okay.
I will be happy to do that. Thank you, Nisa. Yeah, and thank you for joining us all again. So Sage, I'm going to come to you first with a question. We had a question about kind of some of those domestic content, prevailing wage. This question asker is clearly, has some experience with this policy because they're asking to achieve the tax credits. Was domestic content and prevailing wage required? And if so, how much did it impact the project's price? So, you can get into that and maybe we'll clarify some of the policy. It's sounding like, was there a premium to do those things? If so, how much? And then maybe you can talk about the other side, kind of the increased credit.
Sure. So specifically with the Springfield School District, we knew up front that we wanted to pursue as much domestic content as possible to get that extra 10%. At that time, and I believe, and others can chime in on this as well, there's still a little bit of ambiguity on especially HVAC components as far as what does and does not apply. And so we're still kind of waiting to hear some of that. So I know a few of the manufacturers have stated that they've given their own kind of like seal of approval. This is all domestic content, but we're honestly in still the wait and see. So Jason, and you might have a little bit more information than I do on that, but what we did was to try to encourage as much as possible. We just spec'd as much manufacturing and components that we could that were American made to see what we could make sure they go for. Our recommendation has always been a plan on the 30% because that's the base, and then shoot for as much as you can get. So that's we started at, I think, at a 35% is what we estimated our returns on, and then obviously we're shooting more for the 40+%, which makes everyone a little more happy. But prevailing wage, all the school districts we work with all have to be prevailing wage, so that is a little more straightforward. And there's usually an apprenticeship program as well tied to some of that, which we did not have here, but we obviously did with the prevailing wage. Jason, what has been your experience with that?
Yeah, so on first domestic content, it's not required, but it will be required starting January 1, 2026 for all direct pay. So that's likely every public entity that would be listening here. You need to be making sure that that is a requirement. They're staging up the percentage required to make sure that that domestic content is being used on these projects and these energy properties. So there is, what I would recommend to everybody that's looking at that, you need to have a technical expertise on each project that's going after this. You also have to have a tax expert on each, and sometimes that tax expert can be someone in the district, or we can help with people that can do that as well. So this is a technical tax credit, so you need to have some technical expertise. On the prevailing wage side of things, I think we do work all across the country there's specific areas that already, like Missouri, like he's saying, already require prevailing wage. In areas that don't require prevailing wage, there is a little bit of extra cost, but in other areas that are that don't require, like West Virginia is an area that doesn't require prevailing wage, but there a lot of union work happens there, and they already drive the prevailing wage anyway. So you're already paying prevailing wage for mechanical contractors and electrical contractors. There's not that big of a premium to go down that path. The other thing to think about is we are not required to pay prevailing wage on every type of project. If it's below, say, 110,000 square feet building, you don't have to worry about it. It's when you get to the bigger buildings that you have to worry about prevailing wage. So again, there's a lot of nuance to the tax credits, but don't let them scare you away. As long as you have a technical expert and a tax expert, they can help you guide you along the way.
Those are great points. I'd echo everything he said, and just keep in mind, even on the prevailing wage, every state is probably a little different. So like, for instance, in Missouri, the size of the building doesn't matter. If it's a public project, you got to pay prevailing wage. So just make sure you're talking to a company that has those internal resources to answer those questions for you.
Yeah, I see some of it coming in the chat. Friendly amendment, Jason. Only over 1 megawatt will domestic content be required for schools going into 2026. So yeah, good clarification there. A few quick questions that I'll just take on the process of submitting. So again, this is not something you apply for. This is something you file for, and there is no kind of pre-approval process. So unlike a grant where you kind of do it on the front end and then do the project, here you do the project. You got to understand the policy well enough to have the confidence to do the project. And again, working with kind of technical experts like an ESCO, plus some of these tax professionals can help you build that confidence, because it's only once you put it into service that you then file for the tax credit, during your tax year. There's a question here around, you start it in 1 year and you finish it in the next. Is the tax credit for the entire project applied to in the year it was completed? Yes. So when you start a project, that's an important date. It's called commence construction, and it stamps your project with a certain set of rules, right? So some of the rules adjust from year to year. So when you start construction, that's what tells you what are your rules of the road. When you finish a project in a tax year, that's what tells you what is your timeline for filing and getting your money back. And yes, you do file for the whole project cost, even if it went across multiple years, which it often does.
Did you want to say something quickly about pre-registration? It's not an application, but
yes, that's a good point. So part of how the IRS is getting to know you new non-tax paying entities is through an initial step 1 of the process, which is called a pre-filing. So there's a portal that the IRS has built where you do a pre-filing registration. So after the end of your tax year, or when you've put that equipment into service, you can go and pre-file with the IRS. That gives you a unique identifier for your project, for you as a taxpayer. And then you use that unique identifier to then file with the IRS, by your deadline. A typical deadline. So a lot of folks are filing here by May 15th, which is going to be a typical deadline for a lot of folks here. And then one other point, today we were talking about how performance contracting and tax credits work together like peanut butter and jelly. But we can also, one of the slides, we saw from the CMTA case study with Warren County, there were some utility rebates in there. So those can be another kind of part of our capital stack. And we can also use grants. So grants can play well with performance contracting and with energy tax credits. And grants, it's important to note, actually don't reduce the basis on which we calculate our tax credits. So if we have $1 million project and we get a $500,000 grant, we still calculate our tax credit based on that $1 million. That's a really important piece. So these pieces can really play well together. I don't know, Jason or Sage, if you want to opine on kind of pieces, utility rebates, because that's part of what you all do is find all these dollars, right? Jason, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I think one of the questions that I saw was, are these ITC credits contractually obligated to pay down these? And Chris could probably speak to this better. The money comes with no strings attached to the district, right? Chris, you can add to that. You can use it however you want to, but if you choose to use it as part of your financing or pay down your debt, that's between you and your bond agent, right? Chris, you can speak to that a little bit.
So yes, we've chose to have it as a component of how we finance the project, knowing that there is a risk out there that I potentially have to have a backup plan for if those funds for some reason wouldn't come through, but we do it as part of the financing plan.
But as Sarah said, there's other avenues that we can explore, whether it's state grants, historic tax credits. There are many other things. Like I said, that's my job, to go out and try to find ways to finance and find ways to pay for that infrastructure.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's what companies like ours do, is we are really good at taking all those different pieces of the puzzle and putting them together in a way that makes sense to structure a project and a deal for the districts that make the most sense for them. And so there's very few companies other than ESCOs and companies like theirs that do what we do, that are able to do this. And so, yeah, you want to make sure you're partnering with someone who has a good track record and plenty of references for you to reach out to and see if to help you do that.
Yeah, and
Sage, oh, go ahead, Nisa.
sorry, it's just a basic point that came up a couple times through different questions about the eligibility for the tax credit. It's a point of confusion for a lot of people because it's an energy related thing, is that this is a credit that follows the purchaser of the energy like equipment. So there's a list of things that they're trying to sort of encourage investment in, including geothermal. And if you are the entity that is purchasing that equipment, that's the eligibility of the tax credit. Like that's the point of consideration. So there are a couple of questions in the chat about sort of if I'm a private company purchasing this for a school district, or if I'm a community college. It's just whoever is purchasing the equipment, that is the entity that takes advantage of the tax credit.
Yep, that's a good clarification. And there may be some confusion because some of you may be familiar with 179D tax deduction, which flows to your private sector design partner. This is different. You as the owner of the equipment, it's your tax credit. It's also your liability around claiming that. So that's a good
Point of clarification too, it's not just the equipment, but the geothermal project. So anything that would have to do with that. So not just the equipment, not just the wells, but everything that had to go into that project applies.
Yeah.
Great point.
Great. Allie, I think it's time for us to pass it back over to you to close us out.
I think it is. Well, all right, folks, that does take us near to the end. I just want to say thank you so much to our sponsors, our speakers, and all of the staff that made today possible. Please be on the lookout for more webinars from BASIC coming soon, including one on school construction financing 101 and more. And lastly, we will share the resource links in the chat as well as the recording. And just want to say thank you to all of you again for being here with us today, and take care, everybody. Happy Friday. Bye, everyone.
Bye all.